Hello, sir. We are live now. Anuj, sir, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome back to IFE News channel. And today we have a very important topic to discuss, which is about Indian Army's latest requirement for the lightweight tanks. To discuss this topic, I have with me Rakesh Sharma, sir, and Hex Indian Army Colonel, and Anup, sir, the defense analyst. Welcome to IFE News, sir, once again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
How are you all?
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Yes, sir, as usual. So I will start with Anup, sir. Sir, please tell us about this lightweight tank. Why it is need for the Indian Army right now? What is the purpose of the uh, light tanks?
Well, light tanks, as the word says light, it has got a light weight and it is useful for mountains where there are a lot of ridges, etc. Where in mountains there is a road which is very difficult for the road to take the load of a heavy tank.
Okay.
Therefore, we have got light tanks. I think Sir will explain it better.
Okay.
But yes, we do have a requirement for around 200 or so light tanks,
Yeah.
which earlier Indian Army was looking for it, but they didn't found any suitable candidate. DRDO was also, they have made some light tank on BMP chassis,
Okay.
and still, but no procurement has been done.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this conflict with China
Yeah.
actually, our forces felt the need for again going in for this tank.
Okay.
So, so that is why they are looking for a light tank.
Okay. Okay, sir. I'll go to Rakesh Sharma, sir. Please explain, sir, why we need this light tank right now. Why Indian Army didn't go for it before? What's the reason we are not we didn't go for it before?
First of all, we have to understand what exactly do we mean by a light tank. You see, a light tank would still weigh up to about 35 tons.
Yeah.
A light tank, and it is if you're going for a light tank, a lighter tank. What role do you envisage a tank when whatever term you call it, and then for I would call it an AFV, an armored fighting vehicle. Whatever it is designed around what battle role is it required.
Okay.
Now, the requirement of a light tank was there earlier on. Like we had the PT-76. They were the last light tanks we had because they were amphibious tanks required for operating on our eastern front.
Okay.
Those days we had East Pakistan, but with now Bangladesh there and friendly terms with them, we didn't require light tanks to for the watery terrain or for the semi flooded terrains.
Okay.
So the our prime principal adversary became Pakistan. So all our the acquisition of armor and other weaponry was done keeping in mind the our western adversary.
Okay.
At the same time, there was limited acquisitions done keeping in mind our northern adversary.
Mhm.
Now, what has happened is that in mountains are not mountain terrain does not favor tanks except for very few areas like you have a wide valley where tanks have because you have to understand
Mhm.
a tank when moving a tank when they move tactically it's not as if they line up one behind the other or they line up abreast and move like you see in movies or in the advertisement
Yeah, just a second, sir. I think we have yeah, we have
Hello.
yes, sir, yes, sir. One, just a second, sir.
Speaker on. Speaker on करो. Where is my speaker?
Oh God. Just a second, sir, please.
Give me one moment. I don't understand. Hello.
Yes, sir,
Hello.
yes, sir, yes, sir. I can hear you. Just a second. I'm just adding Rakesh Sharma, sir, and Anup, sir, here. Give me a second. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Just tell me.
Yeah.
I hear you now. You tell me.
Oh God. Yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, yeah. We got.
Hello, Rakesh sir.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me now? Aryan
Yeah, I
Wandar
can hear you now.
is with us. He just joined us
Hello.
live.
Hello, sir. Hello. Hello. How are you?
Hello.
I'm fine. I'm fine.
It's like a family get together for me. It looks like
So
picnic. Yeah.
coming back, what I was saying was
Yes,
that
sir.
tanks or armored fighting vehicles are selected based on the terrain where they are going to operate and the operational scenario where they are going to operate.
Okay.
Now, in mountains, there is a very limited scope for armor deployment.
Mhm.
Yes, there are certain valleys which are very wide, which are 5 to 6 kilometers wide, or there are plateaus where we require them. But on the Indian side, so that tankable terrain is available only in the eastern Ladakh, and maybe if we cross over onto the Chinese side in other sectors,
Yeah.
because we are on the edge watershed of our the LAC runs as per Indian interpretation
Mhm.
along the watershed. Now, watershed is that the dividing line where the rainwater naturally falls and it divides on the two halves. So that is generally top of the ridges. So now there was no requirement felt for a light tank. But now what has happened is that China has wide open Tibetan plateau where they can exercise their their motorized divisions, their armored divisions, and they have diverted two of those armored formations into the our eastern Ladakh sector. So that is why now suddenly there is a requirement for getting the going in for these light tanks. The concept has come and there's a buzz for it.
Okay.
My personal view is that what we have currently is more than adequate to take on anything that China has.
Okay.
We have missile firing tanks, we have missile firing the ICVs.
Mhm.
They can both take on anything that China throws us at. We need not go into any panic buying or anything. And uh, the biggest problem is that when you buy this kind of specialized equipment,
Yeah.
it does not have utility or employment in other theaters or sectors of operations that are envisaged. So
Yeah.
a holistic view has to be taken. Do we want to buy limited numbers and create a separate logistic chain? It is very, very expensive and very difficult to maintain in operational scenarios. The cost factor can still be done, but you see, when you have a commonality of logistic components of the equipment that you're holding, it's easier to maintain logistic chains even in the operational scenarios. So that is the thing.
Okay. Okay, sir. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, Ninja
Sir,
sir.
may
Yeah,
I
please.
just add, bidding also is required for new tank.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me? Ninja Monkey,
Yeah,
sir.
I can hear.
Yeah.
I can hear you, but you have lost your feed on the YouTube.
Yeah. I'm just fixing it now. Okay. Just a second. Yes. I think now we are back again. Some glitches happen always. Please go ahead, sir. Ninja sir.
So what? Yeah. So the one last point that I want to make is, look, the adversary will always create a situation to divert us from our primary aim. As a country today, our primary aim is to number one tackle COVID and number two ensure a phased and proper economic recovery.
Okay.
Now, all of a sudden, we are the what figures we are being thrown around that we are going in for emergency purchases for 60,000 crores and 30,000 crores, and all kind of fancy numbers are being bandied about depending on the expert you are listening to.
Yeah.
The, we this money is being diverted from our COVID resources and our economic recovery. This is
Okay.
what China wants. They want to bog us down
Okay.
by going in for this knee jerk and these, except for very essential equipment. My view is that we should go easy deliberately on induction of any new equipment. The
Okay.
light tanks concept, it's a brand new equipment. We have to give it a lot of deliberation, and it is not something that you walk into a store and pick up. There's a huge cost factors involved. Cost not only in terms of money but in terms of man hours,
Yeah.
in terms
Maintenance.
of training, in
Yeah.
terms of logistics. in terms of the huge number of issues involved.
Yes, sir.
So it is not so easy, we'll say, okay, get a light tank. No, getting a light tank, you have to do a detailed study. What terrain, what capability. You first have to design what you want in that tank.
Okay.
Once you've decided what you want in that tank, then you go for looking around for the tank. So it is not so easy.
Okay. So my question is to the Ninja Monkey sir. Sir, please explain to us why Indian Army is going for these light tanks as an intro.
First of all, what I'll say is that I agree with the colonel here that a light tank is a sort of an oxymoron.
Yeah.
Tank is supposed to be armored, armored enough to be able to protect its crew.
Okay.
The only way you can make a tank light is by removing that armor.
Yes.
You can't remove the electronics. You can't reduce the weight of the gun. You cannot reduce the weight of the engine.
Okay.
Your tracks are going to weigh practically more or less the same.
Yeah.
The main reduction is going to come from the armor.
Okay.
So basically, what you do when you acquire a light tank is you take your trained tank crew out of a protected vehicle and put them in a comparatively lesser protected vehicle.
Yeah.
That, in my sense, is not the correct way to go ahead. And I would agree with the colonel here that given a choice, India should not go in for a tank. Especially nothing in terms of something like the Sprut. The Sprut, even the Russians haven't bought it. They've only got 24. Which
Okay.
is only with their airborne division.
Okay.
It is designed for only one purpose, to go with the paratroopers, to get dropped out of aircraft and function to hold territory until a land army can get there.
Okay.
Basically for holding certain features which the paratroopers would want to hold, maybe an airfield, maybe a port.
Okay.
That is the only reason. It is not there to fight a tank-to-tank battle.
Okay. Okay, sir. So
Again,
yeah. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead,
the
sir.
Indian Army primarily is now looking to acquire light tanks, was looking to acquire 300 light tanks if you
Yes.
go by the Alpha which came out in the year 2009
Mm-hmm.
for the mountain thing. Basically putting into effect that there is a lot of terrain around the Himalayas
Mm-hmm.
in the heights where it is not very easy to take up heavy equipment. It was not very easy as of 2009.
Yeah.
I believe it is time we take a relook at the same. We could take a relook at the same, given the immense improvement in infrastructure. A lot of these areas could now, maybe we could possibly get T-72s and T-90s up there. We already have them at 17,000 feet. I
Okay.
do not understand how much higher we want to have them at.
So why do we need a new tank right now when we have our own T-72 tanks out there? What is the
No, that's
reason
what
for
I'm
that?
saying.
Yeah.
For the sport, we should not go in for something like a light tank at this point of time, unless unless there is something that there is some region wherein the T-72 or the T-90 cannot go.
Yes.
As of now, what I'm given to understand is that wherever there is a Chinese armor buildup,
Mm-hmm.
we are more than capable of countering them with our own tanks at the other end.
Okay.
There is no such area where the Chinese have an armor buildup. Because see, like the colonel said, the Tibetan plateau is a plateau. It's a flat land,
Yeah.
right? And at our end, we have a flat land in some areas.
Mm-hmm.
After that, you have a flat land.
Mountains.
Most of India is a flat land. And then you have the Himalayas, which are the barrier.
Yeah.
The only way you can get armor through that barrier,
Mm.
the barrier of the Himalayas, is through the passes.
Okay.
So, if the Chinese are bringing armor in through the passes, those passes are reachable. If the passes are reachable, T-72s and T-90s can also go there.
Okay.
The problem that you face in heights is that comparatively with heavier tanks, you need a higher thrust to weight ratio, which basically calls for a re-engineering of the tank. The
Okay.
Chinese are possibly getting in a lighter tank because a lighter tank with a lower thrust engine, with a lower horsepower engine, will also give you a better power to weight ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Gives you a better performance at that height. So at the same time, we could actually look at up engineering our tanks. That
Okay.
would be a better way to go about it. There is the Pakistanis have recently done something similar.
Yeah.
They've got something called an Al Khalid 1 now, which is an improved version of the Al Khalid, which has a 1200 horsepower Ukraine 6TD2 engine.
Yeah.
This was the same engine which was offered to us for the T-72.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you put a 1200 horsepower engine into a T-72,
You can go
It'll-
much
it's gonna-
faster. Yeah.
is going to get a lot of extra
Rest.
power.
Mhm. Okay, sir. Now I will go to this go to Anup sir. So what do you think about his view that we don't want a new light tank right now?
As both of the other panelists have said, that having a new tank will create its own sorts of problems. So it will be better for us in this emergency purchase. We should focus on something which we already
No,
have,
sir.
and
Do
later
we do
on,
we actually need a light tank category? That's a question I think
uh,
so.
problem with
Ninja
the
Monkey
light
sir is
tank
asking
is
you.
that it
Yeah.
will have a lighter armor, and having a lighter armor in these days, where RPG and other things are taking out even a heavy tanks.
Mhm.
So uh, I will feel that instead of investing in light tank, we should invest in trophy sort of systems for our tanks,
Mhm.
so that there will be more survival for the tanks is there as compared to just adding on tanks and even light tanks and thinking that this will solve our problems.
Okay.
Plus,
So yeah.
also we should also see that there was a light tank concept by DRDO wherein they have used the BMP churches and they have added a gun.
Mhm.
And also OFP has also made a 105 tracked gun
Okay.
on a BMP chassis. So those things which we can use it here in our own country,
Mhm.
they should focus more on these sort of things.
Okay. So as far as we
At least
know,
money is
DRDO
also
is
saved.
also proposing DRDO and L&T is proposing to make a light tank on the K9 chassis. So how do you see this move, sir? Is it better to buy a Russian import or go for an indigenous tank? To you and Rakesh sir next. Yeah, go ahead, sir. Anup sir, please go ahead. Yeah.
Well, K9 Vajra, which L&T has taken a transfer of technology from South Korea.
Yes.
Overall, it's a good system. On that JHS, if DRDO is able to fit a gun,
Mhm.
uh, maybe it will be a good option, but still weight will be around 30 or 35,
35
or
tons.
even may
They,
go
they
to
are
40.
yeah. They have proposed
30
a 35 tons
tons.
plus gun will be around 105 gun is what they are planning right now
So
for the lightweight.
So it will take again concept. It will they will run through test and everything, and that will again take some time for the system to be inducted.
Okay.
So let's wait and see what happens. Usually, what DRDO makes, army take a lot of time
Okay.
to induct that system
I like to bring in Rakesh
based
sir.
on the past.
Sir, I think so. Indian Army is going for only 300 tanks. So do we need a separate R&D for this or just buy from Russia?
Uh, no, you see this 300 figure is a very old figure. The things have changed since then.
Okay.
There's a lot of water that has flowed under the bridges. There's been a lot of improvement in the infrastructure in the border regions.
Okay.
Uh, we are, you see, the thing is that and I'm quite certain that the competent people are taking a look at it as to when you talk of, you see, it's again, a light tank is what?
Hmm.
You cannot compromise on its gun. You need
Okay.
to take off the enemy at the longest range. Ideally you would like to have it, you cannot compromise on protection to the crew. You
Hmm.
cannot compromise on the suspension because the suspension has to take on the absorb the shock and give stability to the platform when it is firing.
Yes.
you you cannot compromise on electronics. You cannot compromise on engine. So when you say that you want a light tank which is different from what we already have,
Okay.
you have to have a very crystal clear idea of what you are getting into. All these permutations and combinations of putting a 105 gun on a BMP or a K9 chassis, doing something like that, these are good moves for what I call is technology development, because these help you to develop technologies. These help you understand what happens with certain things. But again, I would say that I would rather prefer to go in for more, armed helicopters and attack helicopters than go in for tanks.
Okay.
The, especially in high altitudes, because in high altitudes anti-tank helicopters with the ability to hide behind the hill just pop up, fire their missiles and come back
Yeah.
again, pop down
Mhm.
in a short span of time, is a much better weapon than putting tanks, because at the end of the day tanks will only move in the valley and would have limited climbing ability on the spurs.
Yes.
They cannot climb beyond a particular gradient. So you have to have, you have to have a. It's not question of light tank. When you say, you're not talking of a tank per se, you're talking of a weapon system.
Yes.
Now, how will you utilize that weapon system, and what will be its optimum utilization?
Okay.
That is what we have to keep in mind. But I am fully with this. These experiments must go on, because at some level, these experiments, when they're carried out, they give us important lessons in designing our future weapon systems.
Okay.
Like putting something on a BMP-2 chassis, putting something on a K9 chassis, mixing and match. You are learning from existing platforms to improve your next generation platform. So to that extent, I would go that yes, DRDO must continue experimenting, L&T and other private players must continue experimenting, but at first level, what I would say is that the army headquarters, the hierarchy has to decide what would be the battlefield utilization of a weapon system. That is the light tank, what we are discussing the light tank.
Okay. Okay,
Now,
sir. I can understand your point, but the thing
Yeah.
is, if at all India want to go for the light tank category, should it import or make it on its own within India?
I have a view which is slightly different from many people. What I would say is that we must go for what is called the horizontal induction of technology for vertical development.
Okay.
So you pick up a few pieces inside up front, and then balance you develop, and you set up a design studio in the country. My biggest, you may say the point that sore point that India should be looking at is, we've flown MiG-21s for more than 50, 60 years.
Yes.
And yet every time for an upgrade, we had to send them either to Russia or to Israel or to some third party.
Mm-hmm.
HAL did not have a design bureau. So we have to seriously think now. Of course, all the three services have their own design bureau, but we have to seriously think at looking at futuristic designs. That okay, this is what we need and this is what we want the design to have.
Okay. I want to bring in Ninja Monkey, sir. Sir, what do you think about this idea of the light tank? If at all India want to buy a 300 tank, should we import or make it on its own within India?
Like I said in my conversation earlier, the 300 number was decided in 2009. That was when we did not have our border roads ready. We did not have a lot of bridges ready. We did not have very good access to a lot of regions.
Okay.
Like the colonel is saying, we should actually, like I've said earlier, and like the colonel has also just said, we should take a relook as it is
Okay.
to see what are the real numbers which are required. Again, coming back to the DRDO tank issue that you're talking about.
DRDO versus Russian imports, road tank. Yeah.
DRDO, I believe here is only a systems integrator. What's happening here is we are finally looking at acquiring the 3105 turret. It's a turret series called the 3105 turret, which is made by CMI Defense of Belgium.
Yes.
CMI Defense, this turret is a NATO standard turret now, which is accepted across the board for a number of NATO platforms. It's qualified for the Boxster. It's qualified for a number of Singapore IFVs. It is qualified for the K-21 in Korea. It is qualified for the Austrian Pandur. It is qualified for the Patria.
Okay.
It is qualified for the Polish Rosumak. It is qualified for a lot of vehicles.
Okay.
This is now it's a industry standard. You can call this unit as an industry standard. Acquiring this is basically a road into opening up a path for CMA Defense to enter India as a partner with DRDO and L&T.
Hmm.
What is CMI defense? They basically make a lot of different kind of turrets from 30 mm to 120 mm.
Yeah.
Again, coming back, yes, I would agree with the colonel that we should not look at a 105 mm turret as of now.
Yeah.
Looking at the future, the better choice would be to go in for another CMI defense turret, which is called the XC8,
Hmm.
which has a 120 mm gun,
Okay.
which would bring in at par firepower. But basically, if you look at it in terms of caliber, with the Arjun,
Okay.
that would be more futuristic.
Okay, sir.
That
But
and the
yeah.
difference in both turrets is not so much. The 105 turret, I believe, is 1.87 tons, and the 120 mm turret is 2.7 tons. So there's a 1 ton. That's all there is. These are
Okay.
lightweight turrets.
Okay. So I want to ask you all about the Chinese lightweight tank. How does it change the battlefield at the northeast? Anuj sir, please go ahead, sir. You can start from you.
Okay, Chinese light tanks. You see, Chinese light tanks, as we have seen from the videos or various videos which they have posted, including the videos of their factories, they have got on the sides they have got a very limited or a low protection as compared to on the front part.
Yeah.
Especially just above the wheels, etc. That part they have got 50 mm protection. So, but their frontal protection is quite good. So, according to that, we have to see what are the anti-tank option which is with us as compared to going in for a tank versus tank.
Yeah.
Because as Colonel has rightly said, that in mountains we have got a very limited area to use our tanks.
Mm.
So instead of going for the tank against the Chinese tank, we should look for other options,
Air assets,
other
yeah.
locally made options rather than going in for all out purchase from a foreign country, which will have a lot of other issues.
Okay. Colonel sir, how do you think about the Chinese deployment of their tanks at the Ladakh region? Do you think it's a threat for the Indian Army?
No, not at all. It's not a threat, it's an irritant. I would put it that way.
Yeah.
You see, the reason for that is that it's very simple that the infantry troops today, our infantry battalions today are authorized ATGM platoons, that is anti-tank guided missile platoons. Now imagine this guy is sitting at a height, there is a height differential, the tank is coming down the valley.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy for him, especially sitting at those heights, and I have been served in those areas. I have seen, I'm not naming those places for obvious reasons, but I have been on those heights.
Mm-hmm.
When you see something coming down, instead of taking them on frontally, you can take them on top attack. You hit the turret from the top. That's the most weakest part of the tank.
Yeah.
You can hit. So this, you see, this has been hyped up unnecessarily, I would say. What we have today, we are quite capable of dealing with it. And let me tell you that, and those who are watching this, don't listen to the fear mongers. But if China ever dreams of bringing tanks into any of the two sectors, which by my view, there are only two places where they can bring them in,
Mm-hmm.
those tanks will not, go back. It is absolutely, it doesn't make sense to bring them in.
Okay.
I am actually kind of flabbergasted to wonder what was the Chinese, hierarchy thinking when they brought in those tanks. Maybe they brought them in just for psychological effect.
Mm-hmm.
It is not, as far as the battles go. Even if there's a skirmish going on, our infantry battalions have got anti-tank platoons. We have got BMPs in that area. They have got anti-tank missiles, and now we have got tanks there which are capable of firing the anti-tank missiles.
Yeah.
So their tanks, their so-called light tanks, whatever they are, it's not much of. It's just a hype. It's not a threat.
It's not a threat. Okay, so Ninja sir, what do you think about this impact it can make when you have a tank battalion in the northeast, sir?
Can't bring the tanks in without moving into the process.
Sir, we can hear you properly. Can you be louder a little bit? Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, like everybody else has also been saying, Tibet is a flat land. Over there, you can take tanks where you want. But when you want to bring the tanks across the Himalayas, there are a limited number of passes through which you can bring them across the Himalayas.
Okay.
You cannot just bring them across everywhere. Those
Mm.
passes can be covered
No,
using
what is
water
the
based.
yeah? What is the impact it can make in the battleground like in northeast?
Like concept, much of an impact. See, mountains are infantry territory.
Yeah.
Mountains are by default infantry territory. Infantry can go to places in mountains that no mechanized unit can. Infantry can hide behind rocks that artillery cannot reach.
Okay.
Mountains are by default infantry territories. If you have your infantryman properly trained with a good RTPCM, there is no tank on earth that he cannot take out. If he can find a vantage point. It is
Okay.
all about a good infantryman finding a good vantage point, overlooking a pass, looking at a tank and taking it out.
Okay. Okay, sir. And I think we have discussed a lot about this lightweight tank. But today's main hot topic is Rafale. Anuj sir, what do you think about the impact of the Rafale can give to China? The shock it can give to China and Pakistan.
Well, what I think is we have got five Rafales plus one which was delivered earlier. I don't know, at least we have got five or so, but unless and until we have got them in good numbers,
Sir, as per the
only
IAF
then.
sources, we can confirm only 5 years come to India. It's not more.
So only five will not make much of a difference. We need to have at least 20, 30 of these to have some sort of difference against both our enemies or in two front wars.
Okay.
So what I feel is that, and I have always felt that instead of going in for buying them from abroad, we should make them here in India by license or otherwise. So, and Air Force should also put its resources on the fifth generation AMCA project. Only then we can fight a war, because these things we have to buy and then we have to train on these. If unless and until these things are made here in India,
Yeah.
not something which is a screwdriver technology, but properly made here 100%, that will what win us wars in
Okay.
future.
Okay, Colonel sir, what do you think about the Rafale, sir? What is the impact about the Rafale?
You see,
Why it is a very big topic
Rafale
even in
again.
Pakistan as well. So,
No, Rafale again is it's a weapon platform, and it has to be looked at in a different context. You see, purchase of these two squadrons of Rafale has given us a breathing space to develop our own, or rather, ramp up our production of our own HAL, lines. Now, these what the sensible thing that India did was that India sent its pilots to France, the pilots who have flown the aircraft. They have flown for more than a year with the French Air Force. So that lead time of learning, because any equipment that is handled is new equipment that is inducted. That equipment has to be meshed with your operational requirement. The pilots have to be trained. The pilots have to be trained first to fly the equipment and then to fly it operationally. So that takes time. We have cut short on that lead time by getting the our pilots who in France. They have been there for about a year and a half, flying with the French Air Force, doing their tactical flying, learning the operational flying. So that when they come here, we are ready to go. Now with 5 aircraft, you can't do much.
yeah.
We require at least one squadron strength to make a difference in one theater or one sector.
Okay.
The advantage that we have is, any up to the mark sophisticated weapon system that is inducted, it does give you an edge over what the enemy has.
Yeah.
We are currently in the process of coming back to the Make in India thing. You see, the one key thing that late Manohar Parikarji did was that he created an environment where a lot of Indian companies were
Involved.
able to
Yeah.
become a part of the global supply chain.
Yes.
Uh, that helped us in getting the technology, because to be
Okay.
part of the global supply chain, you have to get the technology.
Okay.
Now, similarly, when we are running this Rafale, we are going to, there's an offset program going on. There is a transfer of technology going on to DRDO and to some 36 odd defense PSUs.
Hmm.
Now, this will actually infuse, technology which would come in handy for us to develop and make our Tejas platform much better.
Yeah.
So that is the thing that is happening now. As
Okay.
far as the current induction is, it has given us a breathing space of about 3 to 4 years that we have two squadrons of top of the line fighters, and balance we are making up with a Tejas Mark 1 now and Tejas Mark 2, which is under development. Yesterday we heard Air Marshal Nambiar speaking about it, and it's going to be competing with the best in the world.
Yes.
So that is what it is.
Okay. Hello, sir. Ninja, sir. Please give us some technical aspect of the Rafale fighter jets, sir. And what is the importance of the Rafale fighter jets?
Hello, I can't hear you actually, Bobby.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, tell me.
Please give us some insight into the technical aspect of the Rafale fighter jet. Why it is so much hyped in both India and Pakistan. As for we can see a lot of headlines in Pakistan and also in China also. So please go ahead and explain to us and our
Rafale
viewers
would
what is the
be
impact on.
the
Yeah.
Rafale would be the first proper 4++ gen aircraft coming into service in the
Okay.
subcontinent.
Okay.
Okay, the AESA radar on the Rafale is more advanced than anything else on the subcontinent by a factor of one. I think I would say twice. Uh, the missiles in Rafale carries the Meteor missiles. They are possibly the most advanced air missile today on the subcontinent.
Sir, I think so. Your signal is so weak there. We can't hear you properly. Your voice is breaking a lot.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah. I can hear you, sir. Go ahead, sir.
The Rafale is the first proper 4++ gen aircraft that has come into the subcontinent. Uh,
Yeah.
Basically, meaning that it is the first aircraft in the subcontinent which has basically everything that a fifth gen aircraft would have,
Hmm.
except for uh, stealth shaping, you could say. Other than that, just about
Okay.
everything that you could find in a fifth gen aircraft, you will find in a Rafale.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Uh,
And yeah.
in that regard, it has the most advanced weaponry of any aircraft in the subcontinent. Whether you call it Scalp or you call it the Meteor, they are the most advanced ALCMs and the most advanced BVRAM that you have in the subcontinent.
Yes.
So all of
Meteor.
that
Yeah.
is yes. All of that is going to make a major difference.
Okay. Okay. I think Rafael is a big topic. We can
And
debate in
obviously
another
the
show also.
uh,
Yeah.
obviously the core thing that the Rafale brings is spectrum.
Okay.
The
Okay, sir. Yeah.
subcontinent has not seen an electronic warfare suite like this. We haven't had a similar system which has been proven to spoof radars in Libya, in Syria, and it has taken out air defense systems from of Russian origin in both these areas.
Okay.
So there is obviously something to it that would be classified at the moment
Okay.
that the
Okay.
Air Force would check out slowly.
Yes, sir.
So,
Okay, sir.
so
Now we have come for the final segment of the show. Your final thoughts on the light tank, sir. Anuj, sir, please start. Final words on the light
Well,
tanks. Yeah. Go ahead.
instead of but what I feel is instead of having 300 or so light tanks, we should go for 300 or so light combat helicopters, because tank will give us having a weapon system in planes, whereas something like light combat aircraft helicopters will give us a combat system for not only planes but helicopters and other areas.
Yeah.
Only and what we have got at present, T-90, T-72, etc., they are more than enough for mountain areas, although I am quite skeptical. Israelis learned hard way when they sent tanks, and Hezbollah guerrillas, they intercepted those tanks with anti-tank
Missiles.
RPGs,
Yeah.
etc. in mountain areas, and they had a very bad experience with them. After that, they made trophy system mandatory for all tanks.
Okay.
So what I presume is, and what I think is that instead of going in for these light tanks in an emergency procurement, we should go in for light combat helicopters. That will be quite advantageous for us in long run also.
Okay, so thank you. Rakesh, sir, please go ahead, sir. Your final thoughts, please,
Yeah.
on light tanks.
Like as I said that you see, first of all, light tank per se, one is not very comfortable with that idea of putting a light tank, which means you compromise. The only area that you can compromise is this crew protection. So one is not comfortable with that. Second thing is that in mountainous area terrain, if we are looking at moving beyond the hills into the Tibetan plateau or some other side, then we must look at getting some tanks, but not light tanks. I will not use the term light tank because it doesn't make sense. Light tanks doesn't make sense. We should go in for a suitable armored fighting vehicle of a specified nature, so that it can it can be carried forward, it can be staged forward, it can be used once we cross the hill line and we got into the Tibetan plateau. But as I've always maintained that the force multiplier in mountains and plains is going to be the attack helicopters. We need to consider that as an option, rather than having a complete unit, especially in the mountains. If you have one river valley which is about 5 to 7 kilometers wide, you have two attack helicopters going, four of them going in, two each in sorties. Any armored unit coming against them is bound to be knocked off.
Okay.
It's as simple as that. And so that is one thought. The second thought about the classification of tanks, you see, even if you say it's a light tank, it will weigh around 35 tons minimum.
Yes.
Because anything less than 35 tons means that you've seriously compromised either the gun or the turret or the hull.
Sir,
And either of which,
Russians are
either of
offering
the three,
fruit tank for at least 18 tons
yeah.
only.
So
Second
no,
case.
18 it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they
So-
have 125 gun also on top of it.
so these are unlike, these are all this thing. The army has to decide what is the operational scenario in which it wants to push in these AFVs.
Yeah.
And then based on that scenario, the AFV design has to be firmed in, frozen, and then whatever we need to do next.
Okay. Ninja sir, your final thoughts, please.
Again, I would not recommend going in for anything on a knee-jerk basis. In fact, all you want to do something on a knee-jerk basis, that's going to give the Chinese a lot to think about if they try to come across.
Yeah.
Upgrade the infantry. Give them as many good ATGMs. Give them as much of guided mortars, artillery support, more MBRL rounds, guided MBRL rounds. And as everybody's been saying, you already have the Rudra. You have 57 Rudras already inducted into the Air Force.
Indian Army, yeah.
Indian Army, yes.
Yes.
Give the Rudra the ATGM it needs. Whether it is Spike ER or it's an indigenous ATGM, ATGMs.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Upgrade the infantry. Give your attack helicopters ATGM. You are set for the mountains. You do not need to worry about a lot of things.
Okay. And I'm extremely happy to see you all again, and thank you all for coming to IFA News again and sharing your wonderful thoughts on the topic. Thank you, sir. We'll come back again with another.
Thank you. It's a pleasure always to come.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Jai Hind.
Thank you all of you.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.